Good evening, everybody, on this very wet and yucky evening. How are you all doing? Hope everybody's doing okay. So, I wanted to have a think today about what is holding us back. Now, you'll all know that I do life coaching, therapeutic life coaching, and I do a lot of work around goal setting, and that's a fundamental part of the work that I do, and this is something that comes up in my client work all the time. Now it could be about it could be so when we're thinking about what is holding us back, that could be in terms of big goals, or it could be in terms of lifestyle. But usually when we're thinking about how we want our lives to be, there's always some sort of resistance to taking that big step, taking the next step. Doesn't even have to be a big step. It's just like the next step. But any next step, if it feels out of your comfort zone, can feel enormous. So I thought it would be really good to have a think about what is it that holds us back, because there's often several layers to it, but fundamentally it's pretty simple, to be honest with you. Most of the time I think people tend to think that what holds us back is practical stuff like time and money. And the reality is that what holds us back, I would say 90% of the time, is ourselves. We are the ones that get in our own way, and we are the ones that come up with the blocks and the preventions to going for our big dream. So, as I said, that can be broken down into several layers, and we can think about self-limiting beliefs, and we can also think about fear, because ultimately it all comes down to fear. I think, as I said, like most of the time, it comes down to fear, and that fear can be about stepping out of our comfort zone and doing something different, or it can be worrying about what other people will think about us and what other people will, whether or not they will judge us, and what they will say about us if we achieve it, and what they'll think about us if we fail. So, because, fear is always such an interesting topic for me, because when we think about going for the dream, and as I said, this doesn't have to be a life-changing dream. This can be just doing something which feels to you like it's a big step. Fear of failure is real, right? Like, what will happen? What's that beautiful meme? What if I fall? And then, but what, my darling, if you fly? I love that. I just absolutely love that so much. It's so beautiful. But we get worried. We get so worried and so caught up in what might happen if we don't achieve it. And sometimes I think that's about how we value ourselves. And sometimes that's about the value that we think other people put on us, and what they'll say and what they'll think. But sometimes actually it's about fear of actually achieving our goals, and what will happen, how will we change if we achieve them. Hello, my lovely. I know this resonates with you really well. If we achieve our goals, then we might change. People might view us differently. People might think about us differently. And Nicola, I can mention you in this, I'm sure. I did an exercise recently where you think about what's the first kind of fear that you think of. This was a group activity that we did. What's the first thing you think of when people think about you achieving your goals, and like some of the some of the stuff that comes up is just like so silly, and just kind of like makes no sense, but it all feeds into. So it could be like if I go for my big dream, I like I'm part of a boot camp for entrepreneurs, self-employed women, and like if you achieve your goals, what will come up for you? And it's things like sometimes it's practical stuff like I'll be earning so much money, I have to pay more tax, or uh, I'll have to get a cleaner in, or I'll have to buy a bigger house, and then like what will the neighbours think, and like all these kind of like really silly things. I'm completely going off tangent, but it just goes to show that when we have fear, sometimes that fear is really valid, but a lot of the time that fear is rooted in something which is either irrelevant or just doesn't really have much foundation to it. And that's that's a real thing. When I was a social worker, I worked for a local authority for 18 years. I was 22 when I started, and I was 40 when I left. But I had lots of different roles in that time. I worked in lots of different teams, but essentially I was safe in the cocoon of working for a local authority. And even though I wanted to leave and I had dreams and I had aspirations, making that big leap was absolutely terrifying because there were financial implications to it. Of course, being self-employed, there are financial implications, irregular income, sick pay, like holiday pay, like pensions. Like you think about all of this, especially when you're a mother. Actually, as much as what that fear was real for me, there was also the real fear of worrying about what other people would think about me, and whether or not they would be judging me, and what would happen if I didn't make a success of it, and what would they all think and say. And these are things that come up regularly, not just for me, for loads of I'm talking about women to women, so I'm going to just stick to the theme of women. These are the kind of fears that come up for women all the time, is around what people will think about us. I'm working with several women at the moment who are thinking about making like pretty big life-changing decisions. And inevitably what comes up for them is what other people will think of them. What will their family members think of them? Like that's an absolute genuine real fear. So I think really when you have a fear like that, the most important thing to do is to acknowledge it. So, the topic of today's talk is what is holding you back. And I think what is holding us back is definitely worth considering, and definitely worth spending time sitting and thinking about, but actually sitting with that. Sitting with uncomfortable feelings is really difficult. Now, I talk about this in terms of, like, on a completely different note, any kind of fear, anxiety, worry, anything like that, or if you're helping children with worry or anxiety, it's about helping them to sit through that so that they can, so that you and they can actually acknowledge it. Like, it's not about like brushing it aside. It's about actually being able to understand what that fear is, understand what that fear means. And then when you are able to understand it, you can almost kind of like dampen it, because we get anxious we get worried about things that we feel are out of our control. We get worried about the unknown. But actually, once we're able to sit with that and we're able to acknowledge that, then we are able to rationalise it in a completely different way. Fear is a very, very natural a natural emotion. It's a natural response. If you are thinking about goal setting and taking yourself out of your comfort zone, or even not even goal setting, if you're just thinking about doing something, making a decision that is out of your comfort zone, then fear is a very natural part of that, and that kind of needs to be honoured. That needs to be respected. Otherwise, it will hold you back, and there's no kind of escaping that. We don't kind of hold our nose and, well, some of us hold our nose and kind of make a big leap of faith, but in the main, I would say acknowledge the emotions that are with that, because the other part is that there's never going to be a right time. Right, we can always come up with objections. We can always come up with obstacles as to why making the next step might be better to do it in 6 months' time. Might be better to do it in a year's time. Might be better when the kids have grown up, or there's more money in the savings pot, or whatever it is. But the reality is that there's never really a right time. There's always going to be excuses are many, absolutely. I mean, we can all come up with the excuses, can't we, as to staying in our comfort zone, because being in our comfort zone is comfortable. It's when I talk about my 18 years as a social worker, or working for a local authority, it was comfortable. Did I love it? Not really, to be honest with you. Was it my dream job? Absolutely not. Was it part of my retirement plan? Absolutely not. I mean, I loved elements of the work. Like, obviously, I loved elements of the work, but I mean, it never really, I always wanted to be free, really, but I felt safe, and that happens to. Yeah, that happens to, I think, the majority of women. I mean, the majority of men as well, I presume. But being able to step out of that, and that's what I mean. It's about acknowledging what that fear is. It's about being able to work out, well, when will it ever be the right time to do something that feels uncomfortable? It's not always easy. The best decisions aren't always easy, but that doesn't mean that they're not right. That's quite nice. I quite like that, actually. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, so what else is there to consider? So if we're thinking about, I mean, what am I talking about here? Ultimately, I'm talking about goal setting. I'm talking about making your dreams a reality and creating a lifestyle that you want for yourself. I don't have any idea what that might be for you, but I mean, I certainly know what it is for me. And part of that, now this is one that actually sits really quite closely with me, because I'm really impatient, like really impatient. And part of the difficulty that I had, and I still have, to be fair, is that things don't happen overnight. There's no magic wand. There's no quick fix. If you want to create something for yourself that is out of the ordinary, then it's going to take time to do that. Because if it was possible and it was easy, then everybody would be doing it, right? We'd all be, well, maybe not all of us, but most of us would pretty much want to. I've said this before in previous videos. Like when I do goal setting with my clients, we've all got these like fabulous kind of ideas. We've all got these great kind of like dream boards or great visions of what we want and how we want. Ultimately, most women want two things. They want time freedom and they want financial freedom. And whatever else is going on, whatever else that goal looks like, ultimately, if you strip it back, time freedom, financial freedom. I think that's what we all want. That's definitely what I want. But that doesn't happen overnight. you know, how many entrepreneurs, I can't remember where I got this quote from. I really want to say this was Richard Branson, but I really don't think it was Richard Branson actually. But somebody really big and like very well established said, I'm a 10 year in the making overnight success, or something to that effect. And that's right, because these things absolutely take time. As I said, otherwise everybody would be doing it. So being able to acknowledge that these things do take time. And maybe this is where the fear of failure fear of failure chips in, is that it doesn't happen quickly. Like for some people, it might happen quickly. I dare say there are some people who have I don't want to say lucky, because I hate lucky. I think we make our own luck, but have breezed through it. But for the overwhelming majority of people, these things absolutely take time. I mean, you speak to anybody who's done a degree or a you know, any kind of like postgraduate degree, or even like PhD, or even not even like degree, like whatever it is, working towards a career milestone, if you like. It takes time. These things don't happen overnight. You don't become an expert in your given area overnight. So, and people will drop off along the way, but that doesn't mean that, but there's always a backstory. There is always a backstory, absolutely. I think, do you mean to, is there's always a backstory, do you mean to overnight successes? Is that what you mean? Or is that to something else? I've only just seen that. I think that's to overnight successes. There's always a backstory. There's always something that has gone on. There's always been, it's the foundation work. Actually, the foundation work takes loads of time. And then once you've got your foundation, like kind of building the structure. Thanks for the clarity, Nicola. Once you've got the foundation built, then actually the stuff that goes on top actually can happen quite quickly, but the foundation building takes ages. So no overnight successes. And that takes discipline, that takes hard work, and that takes, it's about being, I mean, it's about being disciplined, but it's also about being consistent. And this is something which, consistency should be really easy. Discipline should be really easy. But the reality is that it's not, because life gets in the way. So we've all been affected by lockdown, right? We've had, three and a bit months of it now. And we all, I've got to stop saying we all. I'm sorry, I keep saying we all. It's not all, but most of us set out with really great intentions about what it was going to look like, you know, what we were going to do, how we were going to be structuring our day, how we were going to be building our business or working, and how we were going to be homeschooling and like exercising, and, you know, coming out of it like all super fit and fabulous and doing lots of personal development work and all of that. All those intentions, absolutely wonderful, absolutely in the right place, not knocking it. I don't know how many people have actually stuck to it. I know I see loads of people out running at the moment, so there's a lot of people out there being healthy, but there's also a lot of people who, you know, myself with the homeschooling thing, it just hasn't really happened, if I'm honest. Best intentions in the world, but just hasn't happened. Having discipline to working towards your goal is hard work. I've got a lady at the moment that I'm working with who is working full time, got 2 children, and is working on an additional project as well. And you know, we went through some timetabling and like making sure that she had protected time for her work, for her children, for her project, for exercising, personal development, picnics, you know, bike rides, all the rest of it. But again, best will in the world. It's not easy to do. And, you know, this is where I started really, is that we are the ones that get in our own way. We are, you know, sometimes life happens and sometimes life gets really difficult. But if you really want something and you really feel like you really want to go after something, then you'll make the time to make it happen. Like that having that discipline and that routine isn't always easy. But I think if you really want something badly enough, then the excuses don't get in the way to not do it. I feel like I'm being really judgy. I'm trying not to be really judgy, and I know that sounds really judgy. Or maybe it doesn't sound really judgy, but and I'm at fault with that too, right? I mean, we all have the ability to do that. It's not about keeping yourself motivated all of the time is really hard work. I don't think, when we talk about when I'm talking about discipline and I'm talking about consistency, I'm not saying necessarily that we're putting aside an hour every single day or 3 hours every single day. What I'm talking about, and these things are all overlapping, right? So I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but they are all overlapping. I suppose it's about when you fall off the perch, being able to get back, dust yourself down, and get back on it. That's what it comes down to. We've talked about the fear of failure, or there never being a right time, but actually crucially it not happening overnight. And that's about acknowledging that. It's about being able to say, yeah, this is really difficult sometimes, but I'm just going to keep going. Because ultimately, every time you fall, which we all inevitably do, we all inevitably do that. If you can get back up and dust yourself down and carry on, that's the discipline. That falling down, losing motivation, losing sight of your end goal doesn't mean that you're not disciplined. That doesn't mean that you are not going to achieve. It doesn't mean that it's never going to happen. I think it takes real courage to be able to acknowledge your flaws and then pick yourself back up and carry on. I think that's the reality. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think that's just how it goes. We all have this vision of success as being this kind of linear thing that goes like this. But anybody who's ever made it will tell you that this line of success actually goes up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down like that. There's no easy path, because life isn't easy, and there will be things that come along that will knock you off. Sometimes it will be motivation, sometimes it will be time, sometimes it will be life. Sometimes things happen to us on our path that knock us off course. Relationships, not necessarily your love relationship, but it could be your love relationship, family relationships, friendships, COVID, bouts of depression or anxiety, money. Like, these things happen. That's real life. But it's about whether or not you feel you can carry on, and what you are. So I suppose it's about being attached to the outcome. It's about being able to, and this is why having a vision board. I love a vision board. I redid my vision board last night and I absolutely love it. It's beautiful, although I have to amend a couple of bits of it. But I absolutely love it. And this is it. When we talk about being attached to the outcome, attached to your goal, you need to be attached to your goal, because you will easily fall down. You'll easily be demotivated. You'll very easily have people, and I mean, this is another one as well. People telling you, people who love you, or who think that they've got your best intentions at heart. Not not sabotaging you. I don't mean that in a nasty way, although there are going to be some people that are going to sabotage you. And actually, that can sometimes come from the people that we love the most. Oh gosh, I mean, there's so many different aspects to this. I'm going to go off subject again. Sometimes people don't like us going after our dreams and goals because it makes them feel fearful or anxious. Sometimes people don't like to see you growing and developing and getting stronger because it reminds them that they are not doing that. And this reminds me of something a few years ago, but it also reminds me of, I've got somebody that I know, somebody that I work with that's just started a new, like makeup and beauty business. I don't need to name it. One of those businesses that lots of people are doing at the moment because they kind of feel that they obviously need to do it because work is difficult and precarious at the moment. And I was part of a WhatsApp group and I was watching a conversation going on there. And one of the ladies said to the lady, don't rely on your friends and family to be able to be your best champions because they often won't be. And that's maybe that's going off in a slightly different direction. But sometimes the people that we think are there to support us the most actually don't. And that can be really disappointing. And there's lots of different layers to that. There's lots of different reasons for that. But, when I talk about being demotivated and being knocked off your perch, sometimes it can be for those reasons. Sometimes it can be for completely other reasons. But sometimes it's about feeling like your loved ones should be your biggest champions and they're not, and then you start to question why they're not, or they just say things to kind of put you off, or just kind of put that seed the seed of doubt in place that makes you question yourself and keep you in your comfort zone, because when you are in your comfort zone, they don't need to feel threatened by it. I feel like I've gone off tangent. I'm really sorry. So being focused, being attached to your outcome is so important. Having that vision board, however colourful or beautiful or basic or plain that is, being able to constantly remind yourself why you are going for that goal, why you're putting yourself through this, why you keep pushing yourself, why you keep falling and getting back up. Like, what is your big goal? What is it that you want? Acknowledge it. Like, acknowledge the outcome. Know it. Feel it. Because when you get those moments of doubt that come along, all those fears, all those self-limiting beliefs about whether or not you're good enough to do it. And I'll tell you what, self-limiting beliefs are a really interesting one. And I was talking about this with another client ages ago, like last year. And she was talking about going for a promotion, a big promotion, like a really significant promotion. And I say obvious fear. I don't mean obvious fear like she wasn't good enough, because she was totally good enough to do it and she got the job. Whether or not she was good enough to do it and what would people think, and whether or not she thought she was good enough and whether or not they thought that she was good enough. And I can remember saying to her, there are loads of people really high up in positions who shouldn't be there. Think about Donald bloody Trump to start with. I mean, he definitely shouldn't be there. But he's a really good example. Not that I want to give Donald Trump any airtime at all, because I think that man's absolutely vile. But he is actually one of the best examples I can give you of somebody who has absolutely no self-limiting beliefs at all. And it's all about mindset. it's all about whether or not you think you can do it. I'm getting all excited now because this is it. Like this is about you being excited about what you can do and what you can achieve, and not listening to the fear. Like, who the hell thinks that Donald Trump should be one of the most powerful men in the world, like leader of the United States of America? Like, wow, don't even get me started on that. But do you know how he got there, apart from being really rich? He just absolutely, he planted that seed, and then he just went for it. And not that I have any admiration for him, but I do actually think that there's no stopping that man. There's no stopping that man, because there is no filter in that man's brain or his mouth that tells him that he can't do it. And yeah, I know he's got loads and loads of money. I know he's got loads of money, but actually, he's not a politician. He's got no idea about any of the, whatever you call it in America, constitutions and any of the legislations or policies. I know they don't call it that, but whatever they call it. He's got absolutely not got a clue at all, but he can do it, and he can do it well, because he's up here. Nothing will stop him. So there you go. That was a complete off the tangent about self-limiting beliefs, about what is holding you back. Ask yourself, please, what is holding you back? What is it you want to go for? What is it you want to achieve? Doesn't have to be a big bold dream. It doesn't have to be moving to Spain. It doesn't have to be, opening a flower shop. I don't know why I always give opening a flower shop as an example. I have no interest in flowers or flower shops, but I always give that as an example. I don't know why. It could be a family situation. It could be a lifestyle situation. Whatever it is, what is holding you back? Because I think the only thing that is holding you back is the person that is looking at you in the mirror. So, understand your fears, acknowledge your fears, sit with your fears, and then put them out, because you don't need them. They don't serve any value to you. Know that there's never going to be a right time. Know that it won't happen overnight. Understand that you need to be disciplined, and hold on to the dream, and remember what you're working for. Okay? All right. Have a good evening. Stay dry. Take care.